So the research is entitled Towards the Utilization of Milk-Based Strategic Intervention Material in English 9 from Philippine Christian University, Manila, Philippines. Let us all welcome Dr. Juanita B. Lappay.
So again, good morning. So I am Mrs. Juanita B. Lappay, and I am from the Philippines, of course. So the title of my research you have Towards the Utilization of Milk-Based Strategic Intervention Material in English 9. This research was actually conducted way back to school year, greatly evident that the pandemic greatly affected the teaching learning process, and there were competencies which were not mastered by the students due to the resort to learning distance modalities. So to start with the background, we have here the issuance given by the Department of Education, in which classroom assessment policy or guidelines, and stating that adequate and relevant instructional measures must be put in place to ensure that students are prepared for summative tests, and that any learner who receive a grade of less than 75 in any learning area or subjects must be intervened by remedial work and extra tutoring from the learner subject teacher. So when the integration of the in-person or the reintroduction of the in-person classes, the educative process struggles in patching the loopholes caused by the pandemic, and with our aim to make our students understand the topic and master the target competencies, which were streamlined, and with the rarity of strategic intervention materials in English, I was able to craft these strategic intervention materials anchored to the least learning mastered or the least mastered competencies. Okay, so we have here the definition the definition of SEAM. We have SEAMs are instructional materials designed for remediation purposes and is considered one of the solutions employed by the Department of Education to enhance academic achievements of low-performing students. So this study will determine the significance of milk-based strategic intervention material in the academic performance of students before and after their exposure. So as for the objectives, so for number 1, we are going to determine the level or the pretest performance of students before the utilization of the milk-based strategic intervention material. Followed by the second one, we have to determine also the post-test performance of students after their exposure on the milk-based strategic intervention material. Then after that, we are going to identify whether there is a significant difference of the performance of students in English before and after the utilization of the strategic intervention material. And the last one, we are going to have the modification on the SEAM that was utilized by the students. Then the next one, we have our framework over here. So I was able to make use of the input, process, and the output. By the way, this study is anchored on Vygotsky's scaffolding, which states that students are particularly dependent on teachers or peer support. Now, scaffolding is a term given to the provision of appropriate assistance to students in order for them to achieve what alone would have been too difficult for them. It is a support that includes images and words that can be print-based or media-based. And it is an excellent way to provide comprehensible input to language learners, for they will not only learn the most essential learning competency, but they will also make progress in their acquisition of of the English language. This means that simplified explanation of the topic, the use of catchy images, and localized activities will result in understanding and mastery of the topic. So if you can see for the input part, we have there the pre-assessment tool on the identified least mastered learning competencies. And for the process, we have the implementation of milk-based strategic intervention material in English using the descriptive and quasi-experimental approach. Then, of course, for our input, we have the mastery of the least mastered learning competencies through post-test assessment tool, and somehow there's a significant increase on the performance result of grade 9 marine students after using the milk-based SIM. Then we have the methods. So the study made use or utilize the quantitative method of research to assess the performance of the students in English using the milk-based strategic intervention material. So when we talk about quantitative research, it seeks to understand an issue by obtaining numerical data and analyzing it using statistical approaches. Then moreover, we have quasi-experimental research was employed by the researcher also using the pre-test and the post-test design to evaluate the effectiveness of the utilized milk-based SIM as an instructional tool towards the improvement of least learned skills among grade 9 marine students in English. So it aims to determine the cause and effect relationship between an independent variable and the dependent variable. Then you have the presence of the enhanced strategic intervention material will be given based on the findings of the study. Then apart from that, the researcher made use of the purposive sampling technique, composing of 57 students of grade 9 marine from Santa Anastasia San Rafael National High School. And the primary tool used in gathering the data from the respondents is the teacher-made milk-based strategic intervention materials. So these materials or teaching aids used by the teacher given to the learners to help them master a competency-based skill which they were not able to develop during the classroom or the regular classroom teaching. Then apart from that, we have the presence of 40 points pre and post test based on the least learned competencies given to the students. So the pre-test and the post-test were validated and were checked by the master teachers and the head teachers of the said school. So in order to arrive at the needed analysis and interpretation of the problem, the researcher also used the t-test. So this statistic was used to determine if there is a significant difference before and after the utilization of the milk-based strategic intervention material. Then as for the results and the discussion, we have here table number 1. So we have here the pre-test and the post-test results, the number of the students, then we have the mean, the ST, and of course, we have the mean percentage score. So it's very evident that the table shows the pre-test and post-test performance of students before and after the utilization of the milk-based strategic intervention material. And as you can see, there is an increase in the mean with 16.561. So we have table number 2, wherein you have the test of significant difference between performance of students before and after the utilization of milk-based strategic intervention material. So again, we have the pre-test and the post-test. Then you have the difference between the mean of the pre-test and the post-test, in which we were able to arrive with 16.561 with an SD of 4.79. So using the paired t-test at 0.05 level of significance, the researcher tested the null hypothesis that there is no significant difference between the pre-test and the post-test score, a mean score of the student participants. So the probability value of 0.001 is less than the level of significance at 0.5. This led the researcher to the decision of rejecting the null hypothesis. Thus, as stated above or on the table, the researcher concluded that there is significant difference in the performance of the students in the pre-test and the post-test. Moreover, since the mean post-test score is greater than the mean pre-test score, this implies that there is a sufficient evidence to conclude that the exposure to the SIM generally bring about the improvement in the knowledge of student participants in English. Likewise, the findings manifest that the use of the well-designed instructional SIM can be effective in improving students' knowledge and understanding of the topic in English. So the significant difference between the mean of the pretest and the poster scores is an affirmative that showing the effectiveness on the exposure of the students in using the crafted SIM. Then we have the outcomes of the study. The result also leads to an enhanced strategic intervention material. Then apart from that, I have also heard several feedback, the impact of the SIM or the strategic intervention material to my students as they are exposed to it. So it's crucial to identify the fields and topics of the students are lacking in so that the necessary material can be catered for their improvement, considering factors under objectives, content, and sustainability. So the null hypothesis has been rejected. Thus, it has been proven that there is a significant difference between the students' performance between the pretest and the post-test performance result of students in grade 9 English. Then we have here the crafted or the enhanced strategic intervention material in English. So these are some of images I captured from the SIM. Then for the conclusion, we have the researcher, based on the data presented, concluded that the utilization of the milk-based strategic intervention materials can help the students increase their performance in English 9. The result can lead to a more enhanced milk-based SIM as a response to master least learned competencies. Then as for the recommendation, we have the following. Number 1, we have an enhanced strategic intervention material should be utilized, followed by crafting and validating of more intervention materials should be enforced. Then school heads should encourage teachers to formulate or craft innovative materials to help improve the performance of students. Then apart from that, school heads should conduct trainings for the formulation of interactive strategic intervention materials, and teachers should try themselves to formulate and craft innovative materials to supplement the modules given to the students. Then, school administrators should provide appropriate technical assistance to the teachers on the formulation of interactive strategic intervention materials. And the last one, we have school heads should encourage teachers for further learning on innovations and research. Then I have here the references. So that is my study. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to present it before this awesome crowd or this audience.
Thank you.